exciting fun. Call the meeting to order at 2:02 on May 27th. And we'll start off with the consent calendar, and Tom's gonna handle that. We're using a consent calendar to take as little time as possible for things that are not real important.
So let me formally make a motion that the consent calendar be adopted, which the board has in front of them. Let me just give you a highlight of them, and then in the discussion portion, I will say a few things.
Do we have a second? Good. I thought for a minute we weren't gonna get a second.
So anyway,
Okay, Tom.
there are three board minutes that need to be approved, April 22, 29, and May 21. The board has already reviewed these. We review them in draft form right away as soon as they're printed for our review. So what's happened in a few of them, I'd like to mention that we had a change order having to do with the thermostat replacement program for $21,000, and we're almost finished with this building. Been very complicated, but the second contractor has done a wonderful job. The guest room renovation, which has been slow to get off the ground, there was a motion and approval of a $7,000 from the reserve fund to retain a architect who is very experienced in that kind of conversion. And I think there's real progress being made on having a wheelchair-friendly guest room on the property. The last item would be we approved our accepting the North Star Club financial software program. So we were going to change our software, financial and dining this year. That's a major project. We have a consultant working with us during this transition, but we will hopefully have it in place by the end of September. And my neighbor to my right is going to be part of the group in the transition. So the other items in the consent calendar have to do with the duty to inspect, which we were all here for last time. And the third item, believe it or not, has to be approved by the board, and that is a recommendation by the architectural committee to approve the small portable fencing for a dog on one of the ground floor levels. All of that will be within the concrete deck, not deck, but patio of the tenant, of the resident. So those are the three items in the consent calendar. I move their approval. And I didn't move, but I call the question unless there's other comments.
It's already been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on these three important items? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I should add that these minutes are available to you in the mailroom and also online, so for those who like to track it down. And the history is unbelievable that we have of minutes of all, I think going back these 3 years online.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent calendar is approved. Scott just handed me a note and he said he had to run off to do some last minute work. And he wants us to skip down in your agenda to 7.1, 7.2. So we're going to do this. Tom, you get to talk a little bit more
Thank you.
about your favorite subject,
I'm on a roll.
the croquet bocce ball pathway.
It's a long time in coming, as we know. It was initiated by the maintenance committee, and we brought in, as appropriate, the landscape committee and the architectural committee. So we have three committees trying to come to a decision. The first proposal that we received was in November of last year from Landcare. And one of the committees wanted to have a second approach to the problem, and Landcare proposed that. And then another committee wanted to have RHAA, a landscape architectural firm that did the original property here and is doing all the mitigation in the villas, look at the proposals from Landcare and see if they have any changes. All three committees now have approved the pathway, which will be of a ground granite. It's an adobe color. It'll be more attractive than the concrete and less expensive by at least a third than putting concrete in. It'll come from the sidewalk, flared in, a pathway to both the bocce and between the bocce and the croquet court. It comes in at around $27,000. What we'll do is have a 2-week resident comment period. We will mark the pathway in orange so you'll know where it is. We will post with the appropriate material this 3.5-foot wide pathway. We'll post that in the mailroom or wherever that Scott puts it. And then the board in June will review those comments and hopefully make a decision. I think we're all generally in line with the proposal.
So the recommendation is just to post it?
That is correct.
Okay. Would you make that motion, please?
I so move.
Second.
We have move and second. And now Dean, discussion. Dean, do you want to discuss this a little bit? You were involved in it.
No, I think we've discussed it enough. This has gone on for quite a while, and I think we kind of all agreed that we would take the professional opinion of a landscape architect, and we have that now in writing with a drawing, and I think it's time to move this along.
Any other discussion?
I should add, it's a learning process for a number of us on the board. We know that it's a slow process going through committees, and we have that as a target to work on this year. But it's extraordinary that in this case, we had to have the two committees lost their chairs, and most of the committee members were different. So we lost them in February, and then we had to go back to a whole new slate. So when we plan in the future, we must be cognizant of the fact that we want to get these things done within the same time frame of the existing board, existing committee memberships.
What's it been, Tom? 2 years?
It's possible.
At least 2 years to approve a path. It's gonna cost us $26,450.
Approximately. I want to have a little. Landcare has held their original proposal, I'll put it that way. We are bringing in the manufacturer to help us be sure it's installed properly. So there may be an initial $500 or $1,000 consulting fee on top of that.
Okay, so the proposal is that we post the pathway proposal for 2 weeks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimously. Okay, we have another new business proposal since Scott's returned now. We might as well go ahead. Dean is gonna give us an architectural loan request.
Can't tell, is this mic on?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, no light, oh, there it comes, okay. The architectural committee and the ad hoc condo renovation committee have reviewed and support a proposal for an art loan for, from Yoshi Haishi. One is a triptych and the other is a rather small painting. This was planned some time ago and is just now coming together, but these paintings would go in the main lobby and the entrance lobby to Building 400, where we already have his large 4 panels. So I should say that there's a pause in accepting more paintings for our residential buildings because of the ad hoc renovation coming up over the next 2 years. But this was an exception, but it still had to be approved by the ad hoc committee to go ahead and to accept and hang these paintings because it was just really a project that had been delayed. So I move that we accept 2 paintings. One is a triptych, 3 panels together, as a loan from Yoshi Aishi. Are you seeing them up there?
Yeah, we have it up here. Unfortunately, we're having some technical difficulties, so catch it while you can. It seems like it's getting off the screen pretty quickly here.
Okay, the one titled The Scream, that doesn't look spelled correctly, but it's, that's one that, that's the triptych. That's the triptych, and the other is, the smaller one that you see in the entry lobby.
Is it EA or EE? The stream.
The spelling is how it was provided to us, so perhaps there's some artistic license in the spelling as much as the artwork.
Yeah, it is that way on the request, but Lynn, do you? I think it's supposed to be with an A, but in any case, you now see what we're talking about. So I've made the motion.
Go here a second.
Second.
Any further discussion on these 2 pieces?
I think that we should talk to Yoshi about favoritism. Just because he lives in building 400, they're getting all the good art.
Well, you know, the donor gets to request where his or her work is hung.
Any other comments? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, Scott, we're gonna revert back to you, my friend. And we'll start with the valet cart enclosure.
Gary, did you want to do your treasurer's report though? I
Yeah,
know.
let me do that
Oh, yeah, we do that first.
And Gary, because this is a little temperamental, do you mind doing the report from your tabletop, and then I will manage this as best I can? But it seems like we're losing signal periodically.
first. Yeah, okay.
We got temperamental slides.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. So as been our pattern this year, we'll start with the reconstruction report. And you'll see there at the bottom of the page, $2,084,000 remaining in the emergency assessment. Now that number probably looks familiar to a lot of you. That's been there for a while. But I can tell you that because the payments were made early in May, if you were to do a snapshot right now, it would be more like 1.3 million, not 2 million. So we are eating into it. We had a meeting regarding the villa reconstruction this morning, in the morning meeting, and we're assured that even though there's some more external things to do, the internal things for the two villas are essentially completed, and we are assured that we still will end up within budget. So from that standpoint, it's good news that we're not overrunning at this point anyway. Next we have the cash flow. So what this is showing you is that you're looking at the beginning of the year at the top line where it says January 1st. And we had cash of 93,000 in operations, 2.4 million in reserves, and 2.4 million in the reconstruction assessment. And then we have the cash flow during the 4-month period. You see under operations, reserves, reconstruction. And then on April 30th, we have cash of 274,000, reserves at 2.6 million, and reconstruction, that's the 2.8 that I was just referring to. That's the actual cash balance, and the statement balance, because of the timing of cash flows, is higher, but we wanted to show you what the actual net cash was at the end of the month. So that's the 274,000. Next we have operations. Operations are everything except dining. So for April, we have the month of April here. We have the revenue, 16% better than budget. How can that be? We all just pay the same amount every month, so what's happening? Well, the main thing that happened was that we had a lot of units sell during the month. In fact, we got in I believe it was $44,000 of our share of the brokerage revenue from the sale of those units. So that one big factor in why the revenue was over budget. The other has to do with a surprising cash payment that we got in April, which Glenn is going to talk about toward the end of the meeting. On expenses, you can see there at the total, $15,000 in total over budget, which is on 761,000. That's pretty much being on budget. And so we end up with net revenue of 150,000. And if you take out the 120,000 that extra money that we got in during the month, and you take out the extra revenue from housing, from unit sales, we're just about exactly on budget from operations. So the next page is dining. So if you just looking at the chart in total, you can see the dining for the month is, for all intents and purposes, on budget. One thing that helped on the revenue side is we have a census of 301. And so every person that's over the budget in census is revenue that we get, dining revenue that we get in that we weren't budgeting for. So there's not a whole lot to report on dining, as you can see, pretty much right on budget. So then you go to the next slide and you compare the two. So for operations, we have the 150,000, and we talked about the factors resulting in that. The dining services are practically on budget. And so if you take out the extraneous items, we're pretty much exactly on budget again for the month of April. So that, if there are any questions, that is my financial report for today.
Any questions from board members on what you see here? Thank you, Gary. That's a very good report for Smith Ranch year-to-date. Okay, now, Scott, you get to talk, okay?
Okay.
Scott's gonna
Good
talk
afternoon,
about-
everybody. Sorry about me running around here, being rather distracting. Anybody else suffer from seasonal allergies? Anybody else been enjoying the windy weather we've been having lately? Yeah, so I'm sounding a little under the weather, but it's just allergies here. I have a number of reserve action items, which is nice because this is tending to a number of action items that we had scheduled this year that we want to do. Some are still some surprises as well. The first one is about our valet cart enclosures. This is an exciting action item that we're looking forward to seeing done. In 2024, we actually had $15,000 for valet and patrol cart improvements, which we didn't get to, but we didn't want to lose track of. One of my goals on March 1 was to address these valet carts to the point where I called our vendor and just said, how long is it going to take to get valet cart replacements? And he said, well, if you order it now, it'll probably be there in springtime. And I said, okay, just do it, and I'll ask for forgiveness later. So they ordered these items, and apparently they're going to be scheduled for installation in the next week or two. So this is not a long lead time action item. The cost is actually pretty low. The total cost of 4 valet cart enclosures, and they are going to be black this time opposed to the beige that you see now, just so that they can withstand some more years of wear and tear of dirt and grit. The total cost is $5,432 for the replacement, and we've also asked for an extra $1,000 so that the vendor can reupholster the cart cushions as well. They've also provided a service agreement for about $1,000 of service for the rest of this year. So the Finance Committee looked at this total package and recommended to proceed with a cost of $6,432 for the enclosures and cushions, and then an additional $2,000 for a service agreement so we can make sure that our carts are being maintained in a good order. These are older carts, but we were told by the vendor, who's not only doing the cart enclosures and reupholstery, they're also the ones that sold us the carts. We could probably get another good 5 years out of those units if we maintain these things regularly. So we think the investment is well worth the value. So I'll pose this to the board for any questions, but we are requesting some reserve authorization.
I move that we approve the expenditure of the $8,600.
A second?
Moved in second. Discussion. No discussion on the cards. Okay? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Gladys, are you happy?
I am very happy. I'm happy for the drivers and our valets. They were getting wet and cold.
Gladys has put the needle into me more than once, so I'm so glad that's behind us. Okay. Scott?
Okay, we're going to shift to a portable mic system replacement. This is coming by way of the Communications Committee. The 2025 reserve study actually has $17,000 scheduled for improvements of our AV system. And we wanted to focus first on our portable mic system. During the Great Goodbye celebration for John Mara that we had in February, we brought in a vendor for some rental equipment. And when they came here, they said, oh my gosh, we were here back in 2000, and we sold you the portable mic system. And we said, well, believe it or not, that system is still in use. And they described it down to that gritty yellow color of the box that Monica and team carries around for birthdays and new resident move-ins, and they were pretty flabbergasted that we still use this unit. They provided us a replacement option for $3,727 that provides a master speaker along with a supporting speaker for the back of the room It's Bluetooth enabled, which means residents can access the speaker content through a connected device or phone. And we think it's going to be a dramatic improvement to use for our systems that we have now, but also maybe expand some of our events out onto the terrace or the plaza or the community room patio and future events. We think this is going to be a great investment for programming. So the Finance Committee reviewed this proposal. They find it to be an appropriate expense within the reserve policy, and I'll tender this to the board for any questions or action.
Have we got a motion on this one?
I'll move approval.
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion?
I have a question, Scott. This is going into the reserves. Now, did the reserves specifically talk about a mic system or just the loop system?
It was related to the loop system, which we have for this room that's deficient, or it's defunct, if you will. It's reached its useful life. So we are contending that this is a audio improvement that's also scheduled in the reserves. We are going to be shifting now to find some improvements for the community room and other meeting rooms as well. The loop system itself is an antiquated technology that we will never use from. So the Finance Committee felt that it was a relatable enough expense to be paid for out of reserves.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, I have one observation instead of a question, and Gail, you can probably help with this. There's another system. My audiologist told me, he said, don't do much work with the loop system because there's a new system coming out called Auracast, and that it's less expensive and more effective. And he didn't know exactly when it was going to be released. Is the only problem. And I just wonder if this is a stopgap measure for us, but for looking at some new technology that might be available.
That system was brought up. The Communications Committee introduced this. Izzy Berkson, our Communications Coordinator, and Monica have talked to our vendor of choice about this. They're aware of that software, and I think that's what we're going to be looking at for more of a full-scale meeting room program support. As for the portable mic system, we think this is a well-priced option, even if it is a stopgap in the short term.
Okay. Thank you. So all in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, Scott?
Okay, we're going to keep moving these, keep increasing in the degree of difficulty as we go through the line items. This is going to be coming by way of the ECS work group. Also, the Maintenance Committee and the Finance Committee has reviewed this. This is tying into our ECS system, the emergency call system. We know that has been disbanded, but there's still pieces of the ECS system that still exist. Oftentimes, when you walk through the property, you'll hear a beeping at an alarm panel in many of the buildings. That is the alarm system still being triggered. The vendor that supports the ECS system, Convergent, met with the ECS work group and has a proposal of $13,305 to fully remove the ECS wiring and bifurcate it from the fire alarm system, which will really just put the ECS system to bed. The Maintenance Committee reviewed this and recommended proceeding with this. And we do have $50,000 in the reserves this year for emergency call switch replacement options, and the Finance Committee felt appropriate that this $13,000 could be drawn from that $50,000, and we would love to proceed moving forward with this to stop the challenging.
Motion is carried. Scott?
Okay, let's keep moving. Common area heat pumps. Every residential building has a combination, well, every condo building has 3 common area heat pumps. There's a combination of 7 easy to get to heat pumps, and then 8 have proven to be challenging. So challenging that they were installed and then the roof was put on top of the building when this was originally constructed. So we've never replaced those 8 hard to get to units. We've held them together with Band-Aids and glue, or we've just disbanded them. Last year, the board approved a common area heat pump replacement in one of those hard to get to locations, but we've now spent a year working with our HVAC company about strategizing how are we going to get to this unit to replace it. Taking apart the old unit and bringing it out in pieces is not the problem. It's about putting up a brand new unit that proves to be challenging. But we found a quote from ASSC for $9,255 to put in an access hatch within the common area hallway of building, I think this one is building 300, for them to be able to cut a hole into the hallway ceiling and install the common area heat pump that way. We're thankful that this process probably is going to, well, we're confident that this is going to work, and then that gives us a roadmap now on how we can address all of those 7 other hard to get to units. We have $31,000 scheduled in the reserves this year for these heat pumps. So we'd like to use of that money, we'd like to use $9,255 to access the new unit, and then look to replace a couple more of these throughout the year, and then schedule some more replacements over the next year or two. So I'm going to pass this to the board for any questions and action.
Do we have a motion that we,
I'll move acceptance.
second?
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion.
So the cost of this is, just to get the hatchway is $9,000, right?
That's right. The board approved $18,000 last year for the heat pump itself. So every one of those hard to get to ones are going to be about $30,000.
Okay, so we've already approved the heat pump.
Yes.
Okay.
Scott, can our maintenance group do this kind of work?
They probably could if we gave them enough lead time, but I think because ASSC is already going to be installing the heat pump, we feel it's important for them to also do the hatch access, as well as this being the first time only doing it. We'd like the contractor to oversee it. Perhaps once we get comfortable seeing it done once or twice, we can start doing it in-house.
Makes sense. Any other discussion?
The maintenance committee did approve it as well.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Now Scott's going to give us his monthly management report.
Okay, well, I had PowerPoint slides, but we clearly know that's not reliable right now. So I'm going to just jump from that to just doing something here on the table. I wanted to touch base first off on the Memorial Day power outage that we had yesterday. We always know emergencies plan to come in the most inconvenient time possible, so somehow I wasn't surprised that I got a call at 7 a.m. yesterday morning that the power was out. First and foremost, I want to thank a couple of Patrol and Valet teammates. Talia, Josue, and Kaylee were on site yesterday, and they provided a lot of service and support. They were able to walk through a lot of the buildings, contact some of the residents as well, and just provided some great support while I was working here as well. So thank you to the 3 of them. In terms of communications, when a power outage goes out, clearly that just paralyzes a community like us. One of the things that I rely on heavily is on our phones, but also on our desktops. We have an application called, well, it's part of the Building Link world, and I'm going to call it up right now. This is the feature that I would use to be able to push an emergency broadcast alert to all the homeowners. And unfortunately, yesterday there was an exclamation point on the emergency broadcast saying that it's not syncing and it's not available. So I called Building Link yesterday, but being Memorial Day, nobody was there. But unfortunately, this just was not available, and this is our backbone to be able to communicate to the community on what's going on. It's impossible to call. It's impossible to do a lot of things because they're all electronic based, and when the power goes out, while we might have some battery backup, it proves challenging to be able to do things outside of this. That's why cell connections are so important on a lot of systems. But one of the areas that I really want to encourage the residents though too is if you haven't signed up for PG&E alerts, that really is a great backbone on being able to get real-time information that we're probably relying on as much as anybody else is as well. And if you go onto pgne.com, there's an area of alerts, and I would encourage you to put in your phone number, your cell number, and they'll ask you some questions about your address and such, and they'll be able to give you updates immediately of when the power is expected to return, what area may be affecting, if it's just Smith Ranch homes or if it's area wide. So I'm going to encourage you to contact PG&E and get yourself onboarded onto that. We know that the first instinct that when something is going wrong, we want to contact the gatehouse. And unfortunately, again, our power outage takes out our phone system quite a bit. We do have backup systems for our backup battery systems for our phone network, but sometimes we don't know that those things need to be replaced until we find, oops, they're not working during a power outage. We do periodic testings, we do biannual testing on a lot of systems, but Oftentimes, we don't know that it's time to replace until we need them. But we also don't encourage residents to contact the gatehouse during emergencies. If you can imagine the patrol personnel getting 300 phone calls from residents wondering what's going on, we know that we want a warm body to communicate with, but we encourage everybody to stand by. We'll communicate as best we can, and if this goes down, we're probably going to need to find a backup plan, but the gatehouse is not it. If you have an emergency though, you still need to always dial 911. That's who you call if you need something from a medical alert service standpoint. But when it comes to building links notification being offline, we're not sure how else we can communicate with you right now, and that's one of our follow-up items. In terms of follow-up items though too, when a power goes out, it jolts the site, because as I talked with Kevin earlier today, when PG&E turns on the power, they don't really turn it on slowly, they just turn it back on, and a lot of our systems get shocked by that. So building HVAC systems, elevators, phone systems, and our computer network just kind of gets put back on as much as it turned off. And that can create a lot of side issues that we don't really know where those issues may reside. We learned in building 400, the hot water system couldn't be reset. We learned that on the 4th floor of building 200, one of the elevator emergency doors wouldn't reset. So our patrol team and our maintenance on tech team try to dispatch and try to resolve some things that we can manage. Other things we have to rely on the contractors, and sometimes the contractors can't be here, within the hour. They may be here within the day. So we are sorry about the inconveniences that these power outages provide, but we are also looking internally. What are the 3 or 5 steps that we want to make sure we do internally that we can reset and redo, that we don't have to rely on the contractor, and we're at least nailing those checkpoints first, so that we can get some of the low-hanging fruit out of the way. But I wanted to turn it to the group now, so those that are on the side with microphones, does anybody have any questions or comments about the power outage yesterday? And while I understand there's probably some frustrations, I hope I've been able to provide you some good background. Sarah and Jay, you probably have some microphones available for anybody? No?
If you want to think about that a little bit, we're going to have an open forum at the end of this, and you can pose your questions. There's one in the back.
One thing I wanted to say about that, all of a sudden my Apple Watch said PG, you have a down outage, it's on PG&E, it's gonna last so long, it gave me a whole thing on my Apple Watch. And I thought, well, that's cool, I'm glad I got it.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, so I have no idea, on my phone, it was on my Apple Watch.
And that ties in again this cellular technology that you'll hear more about on all fronts. When you have a cell line tied to your iPhone, if the power goes out and the wireless network is out, you can still get pushed through other means. And it's really great to have that arm available to you for information. Good. Well, yeah. Oh, Richard.
So we could also use that cellular technology to send emails or other notifications to people. I have on my iPhone everybody who's here by building. You just have to tap building 100 if that was where the problem was. Send a notice to everybody in building 100 that this is the problem. So if the other notification systems are out, it's pretty easy to build this kind of stuff as a backup.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard.
Richard never fails to amaze me with his knowledge of that kind of stuff.
All right.
Happy to help.
Okay, I wanted to shift over to our chiller. At the last town hall meeting, there was some commentary about that, and I wanted to give you a lay of the land on where we are. And I really wish my projector was working here. Maybe I'll see if I can still get this to work while I'm walking. The chiller. So, just some facts first off. The chiller that we have now was installed in 2010. Some people have said 2000. Some people said it was replaced last year. So I just wanted to get some facts in front of everybody of, when our chiller was installed. So a 15-year chiller is not a new chiller. It's also not an old chiller. Sometimes some schools would say that should last 20 years. Some schools say things don't last 20 years nowadays. They're always 15 years. One of the items that I wanted to point out is, here's a clip art piece of a chiller. We keep talking chillers. What does a chiller look like? Well, I didn't take a picture of the chiller up on the roof, but notice, and I'm gonna just say these, okay? This is not really, wherever Jack is, Jack, I know these are not compressors, but I'm gonna just use them as visuals. See these little items that almost look like battery connectors? Let's just call these compressors, because there's 4 compressors on a chiller. Over the last few years, we've replaced 3 of the 4 compressors. They're major components of the units. When one of the 2, so how they're both kind of in little systems, darn it, there you go. I think we have that visual now. When one of those 2 goes out, both go down. You can't have one compressor with the 2 only operating, so both shut down. So even though we've replaced all 3, only 2 are working right now. And the fact that even 2 are working is good news, because even up until about a couple of weeks ago, maybe we were operating at none. And our ASSC company, our contractor, worked their tail off to make some repairs to get these 2 operating, and they're now operating at 100%. Unfortunately, it's at 100% capacity of 50% of the compressors, which is okay when the temperature outside is the way that it is right now, 70, 75. We could even probably get up to 85 degrees, and we can maintain a 70-degree temperature setting within the clubhouse. It's when it's 100 degrees outside that this situation will not be able to support. That's okay. Facts. In reserves, we have $170,000 reserved for a new chiller. We got a quote for a new chiller, and it's $175,000, so we're in line with the price. Now, reserves called for it to be replaced in 5 years, but a lot of things in reserves can end up being sooner or later, and we can work with that. But right now, the steps are, hey, we've been able to make some localized repairs to get to a position where we don't have to run through a replacement program. We can walk through one. And Dan Meyer Architects has dispatched an engineer that's very familiar with Smith Ranch homes. The maintenance committee supports proceeding with an engineering study to make sure that when we get a new chiller, we get the right chiller. And we don't rush through, let's just buy the same chiller that we have right now and just replace it. Let's make sure that in 3 years we aren't saying to ourselves, darn it, we should have gotten a larger chiller, or hey, we could have gotten a smaller chiller. So what we hope to do over the next few weeks, and I maybe say that and really mean week, we're really going to evaluate what is the right chiller, talk to the maintenance committee and the finance committee, and then get an action item to the board, because right now we can't operate with this 50% capacity. There's also a repair order for those compressors to get those other 2 online for $90,000. There's no way we're going to pay $90,000 to refurbish a chiller when one costs $175,000, but we just want to make sure it's the right one. So that's where we are right now, and I think we have some high confidence that this is probably priority number 1, if not 1B, but I wanted to let you know where we stood on this action item. I'm going to turn to the board for any questions, or the community as well.
No questions? Okay. Is that it with your management report, Scott?
I did want to give a shout out or 2 to some of our other managers as well. Danielle in Dining Services wants to remind everybody that the clubhouse dining room jackets for the men's are optional until October 31st, effective June 1st though, so make sure you wear that jacket in the next couple of days. And Dining Services is now offering mocktails. I'm really excited to see this project. I know a lot of new health requirements don't allow us to really enjoy too many alcoholic beverages, but we think mocktails are a nice alternative. So please check out what we have to offer at the bar. In Kevin's department in the maintenance area, he's been working with landscaping to take care of some control boxes, leaks throughout the property. But I think one of the highlights is that we brought on a new gentleman named Nathan. He's a painter. And he's been doing a lot of painting throughout the property, and I hope you've seen some improvements immediately within the plaza. A lot of our curbs are painted and such, and we're trying to add a lot more lipstick onto the property. Monica, in the resident services department, wants to report the new tote bags that she has in stock. They are $10.93 each, which includes tax, and they can be charged to your account. And a few activities in June. I was going to try to whittle this down, but they all seem too exciting to gloss over. We have Karen Killian from the travel agency to talk about travel and lifestyle. We have adult education from College of Marin coming. Bob Hemstock on iPhone photography class. Richard, I hope you're going to that one. That seems right up your alley. There's a makeup presentation in the community room. That's cool. And then a dance class with Beth and a piano concert from Gustavo. And Lila Beck, I've always challenged Lila when she goes to the manager's meeting to quiz on how many annual cleanings she's done. Now, Lila, I'm going to challenge you on this one. This may be a reporting thing. We have 244 units at Smith Ranch Homes. And at least right now, my year-to-date annual cleaning says 392. So I don't know if we're doing double annual cleanings for people, but I'll check that out with you later on. That may be an error on our end, so sorry, Lila. Lila, do you know offhand how many annual cleanings we've done this year? Shout out the number.
Oh boy, give me a list back.
Ballpark, plus or minus 30 units. 121. Okay, so you're halfway through.
221.
221. Well, then you're almost done. All right, thanks, Lila. Glenn, I'll turn it to you with an important announcement.
Okay, I thought that would never happen. This is the fun part. I'm pleased to give you some really, really good news right now. First though, I'm sure that you'll remember that a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we announced that Cliff Shulroy was instrumental in auditing our emergency contractor. Our emergency contractor we called in on a moment's notice between Christmas and New Year's of 2023 because we had the water damage. And we did, they did some work. They worked for us for about a month. And we had Cliff audit their bill, and he was instrumental in saving us $100,000, a little over $100,000. We went to Petaluma and talked with the senior management and came away with a $100,000 credit, and all the credit went to Cliff. And he got mad at me when at the next board meeting, I called him out and told everybody what a good job he did. Well, he got mad at me. Well, I'm going to let you get mad at me again, Cliff. Okay? During COVID, the board and management made the decision that we would keep our employees working through the pandemic. We needed to keep dining services open for sure, and so did we need really landscape, maintenance, housekeeping, and administration, and a lot more. We did it to keep Smith Ranch running the way that it should run. Good food, landscaping, administration, housekeeping. We needed all that whether there was a pandemic or not. It cost us a pretty good bit of money, but we were able to do it within our budget that year. So we went on and bit the bullet, kept our people on, and we're very happy that we did. Scott was in charge of finance at that time. John was still the general manager. Scott came to the board about a government program that was in effect that he thought that Smith Ranch would qualify for keeping our employees on the job during the pandemic. So he said, hey, I think we qualify for what is called the Employee Retention Credit, ERC, Employee Retention Credit. And the government was giving credits for that. We felt, after discussing it in the board, we felt we needed to bring in a consultant to do this work because none of us felt that we had the expertise that we needed to do this kind of work. And so we discussed it, and came to the conclusion that we would do that, except that we talked to Cliff. Cliff is a working CPA, and Cliff had done some of this work, it's ERC work, with a couple of his clients. And so we enlisted him. Actually, we didn't have to enlist him. He said, why would you bring in a consultant who would take 40% of the proceeds, and I can do this work? And he did. And he did it with great results. He put in 5 different claims. A huge amount of work, by the way. It's not just little pieces of paperwork. A lot of work. 5 different claims. And he had to follow up for almost 2 years. And ultimately, with an administration change in Washington, and we all know what that means. Long story short, and here's the good part, recently, Smith Ranch Homes received 5 different checks totaling $1,076,482.40. That ain't all. Plus, believe this or not, the government paid us $166,000 in interest. I don't know how you did that. For a total of, actually we have to pay taxes on that interest of about $50,000. But it netted out to slightly less than $1.2 million. And we got the checks last week. Our friend Scott ran to the bank, and put it in before Trump could cancel the program. And we now are sitting on $1.2 million. We weren't sure that we were going to get this money. The board talked about it a lot, and talked about whether or not we should announce that we were working on it, because we didn't want to set up any expectations that we were going to get it. Cliff was sure the whole time. I would ask him, Cliff, how are we doing on ERC? Oh, it's coming. It's coming. I know it's coming. And not only that, he talked via telephone to the people in the Department of Washington, D.C. till he got to know them. And a couple of times he told me, he said, Glenn, they're the nicest people you ever want to see. I couldn't figure that out, but that's okay. I don't need to. I think that we do owe Cliff a big round of applause. Now he's shaking his finger at me. He's mad at me again. Cliff won't talk to me for a while, but that's okay. I don't care. We got the 1.2 million. That's all I really want to. Now, you ask, what in the heck are we going to do with that money? We've only had the bulk of it for a few days. Like I said, Scott already put it into a money market at 4%. And this week, he's going to move it again to Raymond James and get a little more than 4% for it. So we got it working for us already. It's a plus for all of us. Last Wednesday, the board met to discuss next steps. We didn't try to figure out what we're going to do exactly with $1.2 million. But we did come to one unanimous decision, and that was that we're going to take our time. We're going to study it. We're not going to be spending it like drunken sailors or anything. So we're going to take our time. We've got several alternatives we are looking at, but we may take several months before we decide what to do and let it just sit there and get some interest. We may take a little bit of that and do some things with our insurance where we're paying 9.5% finance charges to finance it, to pay for our insurance over a period of months. So we may do some things there, but we hadn't even decided that for sure yet. So as soon as we know, you will know. We're not going to try to keep anything secret. And I also ask that if any of you have ideas of a really good way to spend this money, then we welcome all your ideas. We feel that Smith Ranch has a lot of things that need to be taken care of. And this money is sort of found money for us. And we're gonna do some really good things. I'm confident, and you should be too, that we have a board that is thoughtful, that do smart things, and they're gonna do smart things with this money. It's a plus for all of us. But our job as board members are to maximize that money for Smith Ranch. And I assure you that this board is going to do that. So now we'll have an open forum with any subject that you want to talk about. Ask any board member, and if you got some ideas right here, you can pose them. And not just the ERC, any subject you want to talk about. So I'll open it up for questions now. Does any of the board, by the way, any of the board want to add anything to those remarks? Dean, you look like you want to say something.
No, I think you did a great job. That's just fine.
Karen, you can't say anything about Cliff, okay?
I had to sit through some of those phone calls, not on purpose, but.
Cliff, you want to say anything? You usually do this. And don't say anything about me, okay?
I'm always glad to help out and use some of my work experience to help out with Smith Ranch. So I'm glad to do that, without a doubt. No issue there. Some people have commented that maybe Smith Ranch didn't deserve that money. Well, there's probably a lot of employers around the country that didn't deserve that money, and you may have heard from the news accounts that a number of folks were applying for that ERC money, and those folks didn't even have employees. So there was a fair amount of fraud going on, and that's what took the government so long to finally make payment to us. It's interesting to note that one of the frequently asked questions on this was a restaurant. A restaurant was told they could not have in-person dining. They had to close their dining room for all traffic, but they could continue to do takeout. That's what Smith Ranch did. The government approved that sort of activity. That's just what we did. We had to close our in-person dining room and the grill room, but we continued to do takeout. So the activity was sanctioned by the government, and that's what we used when we applied for it. So I am a little concerned that it took so long, but I'm certainly glad that it finally got it. And just to add a little comment on interest, the government will normally not pay interest until the claim is filed and the claim has been with them for 90 days. If they can't process that claim within 90 days, they will pay you interest from the date the claim was filed, not from the date that the return or the report was actually due. So, just a comment there. Anyway, glad to be of help.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a question in the back from Fred Kreitzberg.
Oh, one more thing.
One more thing he wants to say, Chris.
Just one more thing. I just wanted to thank Danielle. I thought that the decorations yesterday for the Memorial Day barbecue were just fantastic. It was really done nice. So just thank you to Danielle.
Fred,
Yes, I'm Fred Kreitzberg, Villa 721, and I want to request permission to park my second car on North Road by the fence. I know it's not the first time anybody received permission to do that. When I was on the board, we had somebody that came in a large mobile home, and we approved them parking on the fire road, on the North Road, and they've kept that there for a couple of years. It's my second car we use only when my kids or grandkids are visiting us. And I'd like to park it down there and like to get permission from the board to do that. Thank you.
Fred, have you written a letter to this effect or anything? I know you did a while back, but why don't you put in another request?
Well, I did talk to Scott about it, and I believe he said talk to the board. So.
No, well, let me clarify. Fred, I did get your memo. Thank you for that. And board, I did receive a request from Fred, but I also learned a lot more of the details about the original request and the board response that maybe wasn't communicated to you. So I've scheduled some time to make sure I describe to you what was already approved in your original request. So I think all the details were not provided to you. So allow me an opportunity to connect with you, because I don't think it's in the board purview right now.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Other questions, comments? No questions about the ERC? I'm surprised. Gladys, you're making all kind of gyrations back there. Give Gladys a microphone, somebody.
I know how much work that that Cliff has put into this, and every so often he'd say, I called them, I really called them, I talked to somebody, I didn't talk to anybody, and it just went on forever, and I had all but forgotten about it, and I'm delighted that it was done, but I really, really have to appreciate all the work that Cliff did, the hours that he spent putting that application together and follow through. So, big thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Gladys. Cliff, Scott helped out some too.
Well,
And
Scott,
Gary,
Scott asked me to look at it. He brought it to me, he said, would you take a look at this? There's an outfit that was 15 or 20%.
Yeah, I think just with the mic, I'll quickly summarize the last 2 years. There's a third party that could have helped us tender our claim, and I was working with that third party for about 8 months as we got to a number, and that number was starting to get to about $750,000, and their take was about 10%. And I said, well, 10% of something is better than nothing of nothing. So, but that'd still be a material amount. And as I was heading down that path, I tied in Cliff just to kind of put eyes on things, and we worked together. And he said, you know, I probably could do this ourselves. And so instead of $750,000, we got our claim up to $900,000 with Cliff's efforts, and we had no finder's fee as well too. So it was just nice that Cliff provided a lot of sweat equity by not having to go through that third party. So thank you, Cliff.
Lynn?
You had asked for some ideas what to use with this found money. I know that we had started researching solar here, and it's sort of been kind of in the background. I wonder if that might be a way that would really benefit Smith Ranch, but one that's really expensive that these funds might be able to help out with.
That's one of the alternatives we listed, Lynn. Thank you for that. Other questions, thoughts? Okay, then I will adjourn this meeting at 9 minutes after 3. One of the shortest meetings we've ever had.
Here, here.